Okay, let's just dive right into this. Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're looking at a story that completely shatters pretty much everything we think we know about success, intelligence, and wealth. We're going to talk about two men who made international headlines back in 2014, but for vastly different financial reasons. It is a story of an impossible contrast. And honestly, by the end of this, you're going to see exactly why the rules of money are completely different from the rules of almost everything else in life. Just look at the sheer scale of the contrast between these two lives. First up, we have Ronald Read. Born in rural Vermont, first person in his family to even graduate high school, and he actually hitchhiked to campus every single day to do it. For 25 years, he fixed cars at a local gas station, and then for 17 years, he swept floors at a JCPenney. He bought a really simple two-bedroom house for $12,000 when he was 38 and just lived there for the rest of his life. His main hobby? Chopping firewood. And then we have Richard Viscone. He was literally everything Ronald Read was not. Viscone was a Harvard-educated Merrill Lynch executive with an MBA. I mean, he was so wildly successful in high finance that he retired in his 40s to become a philanthropist. He bought this 18,000-square-foot mansion in Greenwich, Connecticut that had 11 bathrooms, 2 elevators, 2 pools, and 7 garages. It cost over $90,000 a month just to maintain the place. But here is where the story takes a jaw-dropping turn. In 2014, Ronald Read, our humble janitor, passed away at age 92. And the world was absolutely stunned to discover that he left behind a staggering $8 million fortune. Yeah, $8 million. He left $2 million to his stepkids and over $6 million to his local hospital and library. Meanwhile, Richard Viscone, the brilliant Harvard-trained executive, met a completely different fate. After the 2008 financial crisis, his high debt and illiquid assets totally wiped him out. He actually stood before a bankruptcy judge and stated, "I currently have no income." His massive Greenwich estate was sold off in a foreclosure auction for pennies on the dollar. So the janitor became a multi-million-dollar philanthropist, while the world-class executive lost it all. So the absolute crucial question we have to ask ourselves here is, how does a janitor outperform a world-class professional? I want you to really think about this for a second. In what other industry does someone with literally zero college degree, no formal training, and no connections massively outperform someone with the absolute best education and the most elite connections? It just doesn't happen. You are never ever going to read a news story about a janitor performing a heart transplant better than a Harvard-trained surgeon. You're never going to see someone with zero training designing a skyscraper better than a master architect. But in finance, this exact scenario happens all the time. And this quote brilliantly explains exactly why that is. Doing well with money isn't about how smart you are. It's about how you behave. You see, financial success isn't a hard science like physics, where everything is driven by unbreakable laws and rigid formulas. It's actually a soft skill. It's driven by psychology, emotion, and discipline. A literal genius who loses control of their emotions can be an absolute financial disaster, while an ordinary, everyday person with zero financial education can become incredibly wealthy if they just master a handful of behavioral skills. So, let's move into Section 1, the janitor's secret. How exactly did a man who swept floors build a multi-million-dollar empire? Well, his strategy was surprisingly boring. He just lived a low-key life, bought blue-chip stocks, and waited for decades, letting this specific concept do all the heavy lifting. Compounding. Compounding is simply when a little growth serves as the fuel for future exponential growth. The source material compares it to an ice age. You don't actually need a tremendous catastrophic force to create an ice age. You literally just need a little bit of snow to stick around over the summer. It reflects sunlight, cools the earth down a bit more, which brings more snow the next year. A small starting base builds on itself until it creates results that completely defy logic. The thing is, compounding is incredibly unnatural for human brains to grasp because we are hardwired to think linearly. Like, if I ask you to add 8 plus 8 plus 8 plus 8 and so on 9 times in your head, you can probably do it in a few seconds. It's 72. Makes total sense, right? But money doesn't grow linearly. It grows exponentially. If I ask you to multiply 8 times 8 times 8 times 8, your brain essentially short circuits. You can't do it. The answer is over 134 million. Because exponential math is so deeply unintuitive, we constantly underestimate its potential and we try to find quick shortcuts. But Ronald Read, he didn't look for shortcuts. He intuitively understood this one absolute truth. Time is the most powerful force in the economy. The source material notes that, sure, there are thousands of books written about how successful investors make their money, breaking down every single trade and sector bet. But honestly, the most powerful investing book ever written should literally just be one page long, and the title should just be Shut Up and Wait. Read was a master of patience and endurance. He let his investments sit completely undisturbed through recessions, booms, and busts, sustained for the longest possible period of time. All right, moving to section 2, the executive's trap. Let's flip things around and contrast the janitor by looking at Richard Fiscone, a guy who had every possible advantage but lacked one crucial behavioral skill. He fell victim to the danger of the moving goalpost. Fiscone just didn't know the meaning of the word enough. In the mid-2000s, he borrowed heavily to expand a mansion that, let's remember, already had 11 bathrooms. When your expectations rise faster than your actual results, one step forward pushes your goalpost 2 steps ahead. You start feeling like you have to take on greater and greater amounts of risk just to keep up with yourself. So when the 2008 financial crisis hit, Fiscone had zero margin of safety. His heavy debt and illiquid assets completely crushed him. He reached for what he didn't need and ended up losing everything he actually did need. Which leads us to one of my absolute favorite concepts from the source material, the man in the car paradox. The author shares this amazing anecdote about his time working as a valet out in Los Angeles. Guests would roll up in Ferraris, Lamborghinis, Rolls-Royces, you name it. And he dreamed of owning one of these cars because he thought it sent a super powerful signal. Look at me, I'm smart, I'm rich, I'm incredibly important. But then he realized a glaring irony in all of this. That irony is perfectly captured right here. No one is impressed with your possessions as much as you are. Think about it. When the valet saw a Ferrari, he never once looked at the guy driving and thought, wow, that guy is so cool. Nope. He looked at the car and thought, wow, if I had that car, people would think I'm cool. Do you see the paradox there? We buy fancy things to signal our success and get admiration, but onlookers don't actually admire the owner. They bypass the owner entirely and just use that luxury item as a benchmark for their own desire to be admired. The truth is, humility, kindness, and empathy will always bring you way more respect than horsepower ever will. Let's jump to section 3, wealth versus rich. If we want to avoid the traps that ruined our Wall Street executive, we have to completely redefine our financial vocabulary. This divide is absolutely crucial to understand. Being rich simply means having current income. It's highly visible. If you see someone driving around in a $100,000 car, they're probably rich. Because even if they bought it entirely on credit, they still need a really high income to make those monthly payments, right? It's the big house, it's the visible lifestyle. Wealth, on the other hand, is all about options. Wealth is the money you haven't spent. It is the hidden flexibility and growth that's just waiting for you in the future. True wealth is totally invisible. It's what you don't see. It's the cars you didn't purchase, the diamonds you didn't buy, the first-class upgrades you declined. Because we can't literally see into people's bank accounts, we tend to judge their financial success by what we can see, their cars, their houses, their Instagram photos. But spending money just to show people how much money you have is literally the fastest way to have less money. The author even mentions the singer Rihanna, who almost went completely bankrupt from overspending and actually tried to sue her financial advisor. The advisor's defense in court was essentially, did I really need to tell her that if you spend money on things, you end up with the things and not the money? It sounds hilarious, but it's a trap we all fall into. True wealth is the stuff you don't see. And why do we even want that invisible wealth? Well, because of this. Controlling your time is the highest dividend money pays. The ability to wake up every single morning and say, I can do whatever I want today is totally priceless. A massive mortgage on a giant luxury house doesn't make you free. It actually usually makes you a slave to your paycheck. But having a high savings rate, having actual wealth, gives you a massive margin of safety. It means you can take a few days off when you're sick without completely breaking the bank. It gives you the flexibility to handle life's random, unexpected problems, those sudden field mice that absolutely ruin people who have no financial cushion. Wealth gives you true independence. So, Section 4, your blueprint for wealth. Let's talk about how you can actually apply these lessons to your own life right now, today. First up, lower your ego and raise your savings. Remember, your savings rate is really just the gap between your ego and your income. When you stop caring so much about what everyone else thinks of your car or your clothes, your ability to save just skyrockets. Second, plan on the plan not going according to plan. This is your margin of safety. You have to leave room for error in your finances so that when a massive 2008 level crisis hits out of nowhere, you aren't completely wiped out like Fiscone was. And third, shut up and wait. Endurance is your ultimate edge in the world of money. Just let compounding do its magic and don't interrupt it unnecessarily.
Because at the end of the day, your financial success isn't determined by your IQ. It's not determined by your formal education or even the zip code you were born in. It is determined by your discipline. Wealth is highly, highly accessible to anyone who is willing to master their own behavior, practice ridiculous patience, and redefine what enough actually means to them. Ronald Read, the janitor from Vermont, proved that to the entire world.
So I want to leave you with this final thought. If true wealth is what you don't see, what invisible choices are you making today that are going to secure your freedom tomorrow? The true secret to beating Wall Street isn't found in a stock ticker. It's found in the mirror. What was your biggest takeaway from the janitor's story? Let me know down in the comments. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I will see you in the next one.